They should appear. Yes. Okay. It's 1:30. We can start.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, hello. Okay, guys, I think it's time for us to start. So good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to Ccamp session.
I just plugged it in. Maybe it takes a
Does that
second.
work? Okay, let's start from the loadware information. I think you all are familiar with this kind of information since every working group will introduce this information. And actually, if you are a newcomer, and you can just take a look at. So I would like to skip it. Oh, it does not work.
Doesn't work.
So, and also, as usual, we have the, audio stream recording. So please be careful before you speaking. Anyway, and and also, please speak in front of the mic and state your name before speaking. Okay. So for the minutes, actually, contributions to the Etherpad will be really much appreciated. So if anyone would like to input something through the Etherpad, that's great. Thank you very much. And the Jambo, actually, I'm in the Jambo room. If anyone raise comments in the Jambo, and I will, stand up to say something on behalf of them. So actually, for Ccamp, we have two sessions right now. This is the second session, which is Ccamp specific. Okay, yeah. And you can, download the materials from the following link. And we have this agenda. So I really hope that the presenters will use the time efficiently, and just follow the agenda. And you can just focus on the some changes and updates to the previous version, and leave more time for discussion.
We will have a change in the agenda. We will swap slot 14 and 15.
Okay, yeah. So for we usually for the working group chairs, we really strongly encourage the people to use the mailing list and to be actively discussed on the list. And that actually we can discuss anything about technologies on the list. For example, some open issues, and introduce some new ideas, and even for some potential new topics for the working group. And that working group consensus must be determined on the list rather than in this kind of face-to-face meeting. Even though we got some consensus here, we still need to bring it to the list to confirm. Okay.
Okay, let's start with an update on the status of the working group. Since last meeting, we have a new RFC 7963. It's about RSVPT extensions for additional G709 signal types. We have one draft in the ISG processing. Actually, this draft was recently sent back to the working group by Deborah, because the draft, as it was approved by the working group, was defining a very specific solution to a wider problem. We decided together with Deborah and the TIS chairs to go for a more generic solution. We contributed a draft to TIS, which will be used as reference for this draft. So hopefully that draft will go. I'm looking at Pavan right now. Hopefully the draft will progress pretty fast, because it's a showstopper for our draft. Post working group last call, we have the FlexiGrid OSPF extensions. Dieter volunteered to be the shepherd of this draft. He did his shepherd review. The draft was updated, and we will progress it as soon as possible. Working group documents in the agenda. We have the framework for the management and control of DWDM interfaces presented by Rudiger. We have a number of working group drafts that will not be presented at this time. The FlexiGrid OSPF extensions, as I said, is in post working group last call. It's stable document approved by the working group. This is after this one, we will progress on the LMP extensions for FlexiGrid. RSVPT bandwidth availability is another pretty stable document, which will be progressed after we are done with the OSPF-T. WSON IV info, it was recently refreshed. I don't know if someone of the authors, Gabriele, you're one of the authors of that document, if you wanted to give us a short update on the draft.
Gabriele speaking. No, the document has been refreshed and there is no update on the document, so it's a matter to ask the mailing list whether we can go to last call.
Okay.
Thank you.
And what about the WSON Young?
There is no update at this moment. Just waiting for generic Young to be kind of close to be stable.
Okay. Thank you. Liaisons and communications. As usual, we have a pretty intense exchange of liaisons with ITUT Study Group 15. At this time, we received a communication on an update of the OTN work in ITUT back in October. We replied, if I correctly remember, jointly with MPLS, TIS, and PCE. The new thing, the design team. We have a second design team. We are probably the working group with the highest number of design teams. This one is about the transport MBI. I copied here the problem statement, goals, and deliverables, but this is something that is available on the mailing list. The new thing is that we appointed 2 leaders for the team, Daniel and Italo. And first of all, thank you very much for the enthusiasm and for the huge number of volunteers that decided to join the design team. We had some offline discussions with the leaders in these days. I would ask Dan or Italo if they would like to give the working group an update on the status of the design team and the way forward.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Yes, we are talking with the chairs and of TIS and the Ccamp as well to understand what is their expectation, and the idea is to start developing some document which may become a working group document with a collection of the use cases, and to start doing the gap analysis and the applicability to see how to use the existing young models. We will pick up 2 or 3 use cases to start with, just not to boil the ocean. So focus on starting to few one, and then we can continue based on the discussion. And then we will start. We are now in the process to start figuring out when to meet and how to organize. And the idea is to start from the work that has been already done in the gap analysis draft and looking also around other SDO, what they have done in this area. There's a starting point.
Okay. So there is an ongoing discussion in these days driven by the ISG on what was the term, Deborah? Support documents, companion documents, support documents. Actually, what the IETF is aiming to produce is solutions. requirements, framework, use cases, they are all support documents. We don't want those documents to be showstopper for the solutions. This is one of the reasons why we decided to put together a quick list of the use cases to show, to nail down the what we want to do, but to parallelize the work, which means pick one or two use cases, start with that, provide the solution with that, and then go on. As Italo said, there will be several outputs from the design team. Probably not all the documents that will be produced by the design team will become an RFC. For sure, they will become a working group documents. They will be they will be searchable. They can be referenced, but please be aware that not all of them might become RFCs. Okay, any questions before we move on to the first presentation? No, so we can move. Really good.
Thank you. Yeah, so this document is a framework document on the management and control of DWDM interfaces, and this is a short update today. Yeah, our main motivation to having this document here is to identify and find solutions how to operate such kind of interfaces in a multi-vendor environment. So first of all is a common set of parameters that we have to identify and to use for a northbound interface. So it's a little bit related to that what you said before me. And the second one is if you have this kind of interfaces maybe placed or based in a router, then to operate here in a more automated manner. So that's the second motivation. Therefore, we need this horizontal communication between the optical system and the IP layer, and on the other side, this vertical communication to operate this kind of interfaces. So the document scope, I think nothing changed a lot at the moment. So we have a solution space, we have a use case section, and as well requirements already addressed in the document. This is as well a supporting draft for our LMP document that is up and running, and the Yang that will Gabriele discuss later on. We decided not to proceed at the moment with the MIP, with the classic MIP. There are several reasons for it. Initially focusing on the Yang and LMP. So, oh, sorry, what happened? Okay, so again, the solution space, I already talked about this. So what's in scope of the document is this kind of horizontal and vertical communication to ensure that you can set up in an automated manner the connection and having a common model for operating and provisioning this kind of interfaces. So what's new in this version? As I mentioned, it's a very short minor differences. So we refaced the requirement sections a little bit, and I did some minor error correction and rephrasing of the document this time. Yeah, and the next steps are discussion on the list. Your feedback is appreciated for sure. And we started last IETF meeting with the chairs, the discussions, how to proceed with that 100 gig stuff. So the pre-standards document that Gerd will discussing afterwards. Okay, that's all from my side.
So, what is missing in your opinion to, let me say, conclude this work?
So I think the document is quite in a stable shape. Maybe some rewriting, rephrasing is still missing, but from the content, I think, yeah, we are the document is in a good condition.
Okay. Questions? Yes, but
Any comments from the floor? So how many people read this draft, this revision? Okay, good number actually. So actually, I also, I did read this draft, and in the last IETF meeting, actually, there were a couple of comments regarding the requirements, especially some requirements on LMP stuff,
Yeah.
And LMP is a kind of optional protocol for GMPS, but for the requirement description, you said that LMP must or should be supported to do this kind of thing, especially for requirement item line. I recall that Julian in the last meeting he raised a comment and said that LMP cannot be used for connection setup, right? It's only for exchange information between two ends of the link, even for the blank link.
Yeah.
So I think it's better for the authors to modify the draft to reflect the comments or concerns from the working group.
Okay, so we will do after that discussion that follows now. Maybe we have to update the document in a bigger manner, and then we will address that comment as well.
I remember,
you.
sorry,
Yeah.
the comment was actually about the difference between auto negotiation and configuration.
Yeah. Okay.
So probably that's where you need to work a little bit.
Okay.
Any other question? Okay, next, please. So we, as we said, we are now going to swap slot 14 and 15. We have now the presentation from Gert.
Okay. Oops.
Which is...
All right, so this is the problem statement about controlling coherent interfaces. Oh, next one. Oh, okay. Thanks. What is the motivation? So basically, when we look into today's network, the internet grows with, let's say, a lot of WDM interfaces. So it gets more and more. And currently, what is rolled out are 100 gig coherent interfaces for WDM. And unfortunately, there's no common data model to address those. So why don't we just do it? There had been a lot of discussion between different standardization organizations on what to do first. So we first tried to say, okay, let's use what is existing in standards, which is basically for 10 gig interfaces, and extend it for 100 gig transceivers. But that has been proven to be contentious because, let's say, rightly so, other organizations said, well, we don't know if this is going to work because they are still working on it. Now, unfortunately, in parallel, there's also no firm date from such standardization SDOs by when they think a standard could be available. Number three, they're still struggling with some basic parameters in terms of definition and to characterize those parameters to achieve a kind of a interoperable data plane interface. And as soon as we would go for a standard track document, it would basically mean we would need also, it should be based on a standard-based implementation, which is not available. So overall, to sum it a little bit up, unfortunately, the technology is already there. It's going to be deployed, and the standard is lagging a little bit behind. So we need to find now a way to get to a common way of provisioning those modules and wait for a standard to mature. Document scope. First of all, this is a problem statement. So problem statement is something we do occasionally here in the IETF. So it's not really necessary from a process perspective, but it helps people to understand what is a problem and let's say how it gets approached or how it should get approached when individual drafts come up. So the document basically motivates the need for a pre-standard for a control of pre-standard interface and sets out a framework of the scope. So we also are, let's say, pretty explicit of what we do not want to say or do not want to specify. So first of all, we are not suggesting any kind of data plane work here in the IETF. This is out of scope. We are also not suggesting to provide any kind of data models for any kind of standard interfaces, because this is clearly work that is only for pre-standard ones. And we also do not suggest that by whatever we define here, it has to be later on carried over for a standard implementation. If people would like to do so, they're free to do, but this is not a precondition. And also on the last point, we do not suggest that there is a kind of interoperability between different vendors' optical modules on data plane level. Again, this is not our scope. We simply assume that the modules come up with a set of parameters that can be used for different implementations. So what do I expect from a pre-standard coherent optical interface work? So first of all, we are not, this is not a science experiment. We are set out to use what is already available. So as I said, 100 gig WDM modules are already deployed or are in the field. We also, let's say, to underline that this is not a typical standards effort, so it shall be informational. It should be based on control parameters that are already well known and commonly used by those WDM modules. The modeling should aim to use existing data models, so we don't really want to reinvent the wheel, but extend what is already available. And since the full set of parameters is not really 100% clear yet because the standard didn't define them, we're not mandate also using application codes. So for those of you who are not familiar with application codes, so an application code is basically a kind of abbreviation of a set of different optical parameters that an optical interface delivers. Those application codes get defined by the standardization organization once the standard is there. Again, since we are here strictly speaking about non-standard interfaces, there is no point of using any kind of standard application codes because they are simply not there. Then also there's another, let's say, effect, because this kind of lack of definition, sometimes it is difficult to compare different modules in terms of what is the accuracy of measurements. So for example, if you have two different modules and you ask, okay, what is your transmit power, or what do you measure as a receive power? If the accuracy of the measurement can be different, there's different tolerances. So we also need to find a way to give a little bit of a tuning in what we are doing, which is basically also meaning that if we do some threshold measurement or threshold alarms, they should be derived from that tuned parameters. Next steps, we need to clean up a little bit of typos and clean up redundant text where available. And the second point is to start a discussion on how to progress this work. Again, it's a problem statement. There are different options. One is say, okay, keep it as individual draft for the moment, which allows us to have some time for discussion. The other one is say, okay, just drop it and continue with the Presco modules, which is a Yang model, because we don't need a problem statement in addition. Could be another one. Merge it with, for example, the Yang model, so to give a let's say extra text on the Yang model on why this is needed.
or make it a working group document for an informational RFC. We could also try to merge it with informational framework. Rüdiger just pointed out, if that is a good way to go. So at this point in time, I do not exclude or favor either one of those, but would ask basically our technical advisor on how to progress it in the most efficient way right now. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Any question from the floor before I start? No, you can go, you can go.
I'm Dieter Nokia. In the abstract and in the introduction of this document, it is stated that as data plane standards are insufficient to provide guidance and control plane work for Presco devices, work on data models for Presco applications need to be proceed independently of data plane standards. I do actually have some concerns and some resistance regarding this. I'm not sure whether Ccamp should actually step ahead of what's going on in the data plane standardization. I have made many comments in the previous meetings related to that. So I think it's inappropriate to proceed with this work here in this group. Thank you.
So as a feedback, so number one, we are here focusing on non-standard interface. So I really don't understand why, let's say, the standard work has any kind of influence there.
I think we always developed control plane standards for data plane that was standardized as far as the transport network technology is concerned in ITUT, and I think it worked well. I'm not. It's not clear for me why we should do it differently with respect to the WDM technology.
Well,
secondly, I have difficulties to understand where we are getting. Is this just a collection of proprietary stuff? How the different vendors have actually implemented the technology? And I think I'm not sure whether this is a useful proposal.
So there are a few things. So number one is it's not always the case that Ccamp starts working on things that are not yet standardized. For example, the whole W zone work started in parallel. So there was no standard in the ITU. That's number one. Number two is I do not suggest here to do any kind of standard work. So the aim here is to have for everybody who is using a coherent interface to have a common set of a Yang model that can be used to control them. So there's nothing particularly important with that. I think it even wouldn't deserve such kind of a problem statement unless there was this kind of how to say history we had. It's simply a Yang model for a pre-standard interface. So
let me jump in here. So I think there are we need to be clear on what's the scope. From one side, there is the possibility to define, let me say, to try to make non-standard transponders speak with each other. And if I correctly understood that this is not the scope. And the other one is define a common way of controlling different, let me say, different, let's speak about transponders, different transponders, provided that they somehow interoperate. So, did I correctly get that your intention is the second and not the first one?
correct.
So we are not defining a standard for the data plane. We are saying that the authors are saying that if provided that two transponders from different vendors interoperate, we would like to have a common way to control them. This is my understanding. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, I also would like to extend it. So provided you have in your network a set of maybe even pairs of transponder from a single vendor, you would like to control that set with a single abstraction model. So again, we are not in the data plane work. We simply would like to have a single way to provision coherent optical interfaces. Pretty standard.
We have an operator and an area director at the same
here,
time.
Area director hat on.
Which hat are you wearing?
AD.
AD.
Okay, so to take this to a much higher level, process level, of course, Ccamp does standard data planes, and that becomes proposed standards.
Can you speak a little bit closer to the mic, please?
So
I can't hear you very
Ccamp
well.
has, right, does standard data planes, that becomes proposed standards. If for other type of work, you could do experimental, informational, and they're pretty clear that they're doing this as informational, though we won't get hung up which informational, experimental, whatever. Now, what I see is always what can happen is they can take this through Ccamp, right? And you can all discuss it. They could have also never came to Ccamp, and they could have just done an independent stream. So then you would never even have seen it. So I would say here they brought it here. Ccamp can help guide them to make sure, and then Ccamp can either decide they will publish it as a working group document, informational, or you could kick it out of here and say, okay, we don't want anything to do with it, and then they can go independent stream. But at least they get the guidance here and the expertise, and all of you get input that you at least have. If when this becomes standard, you'll have something that looks rational to be based on. So see, the danger is if they just go take an independent stream, you will have no input to this.
Yes, actually, I follow the previous discussion on to give a clear description on what this kind of draft should go with and how it co-work with the other ongoing data plane works. That will be helpful. But currently, we are still not have a clear map in our mind whether the final shape, will be the final shape of this kind of draft. So not very clear to know how to move ahead this work. That's my point.
So let me just that probably you should wait for Gabriele's draft, so you will see a little bit more in detail what it is about.
Lou Berger, I think Deborah said something very interesting. This like triggered a thought. Is when you get to the actual model, that experimental, maybe.
Hello, can you please check that the mic is on because I can't hear it?
Here, I'll eat it. Is that better?
It's better.
So it's just saying that Deborah's comment triggered a thought that when you get to the actual model, that perhaps experimental makes a lot of sense because experiments tend to have a specific lifetime, and that'll line up with giving time for the data plane standard to catch up and also allow us to get a better idea of what makes sense and what doesn't, what works, what doesn't work. So it seems that would be really appropriate. I don't think it affects this document. I think this document's still informational.
Yeah, this is more kind of a framework for that particular thing.
Yeah,
right?
but it only makes sense to do this if you're doing that second part.
Yep.
So I think that going forward with the second part makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Last comment, please, because we are a little. I thought you were commenting. So, okay. Next, please. Perfect. Which is 14. This one, right?
Okay. I think. Okay, Gabriele Galimberti speaking. I think all the discussion and the previous discussion we had with Rudiger and especially with Gert and the comments, let's say, are covering this presentation. in sense that really appreciate also the feedback from Deborah, because let's say open a discussion on the parameters that we are going to list in our document. That is, as we said, an experimental document. That means is open in sense that as soon as we understand that a parameter is needed or is not needed or is missing, we can debate and then contribute to to fix it. Of course, what we are saying here, as we are talking about not standard parameters, is not binding. So we show what we did, we show what we are implementing, and of course, this we hope to lead to a fair discussion. And hopefully there will be a standardization coming from ITUT. At this point, everything will be realigned to that standardization. So that's all from my side. You can read the document. Of course, the document is not very detailed yet, in sense there is the list of parameters, but not all the parameters are yet modeled in Yang. So that is a job that we have to do for the next release, or the next releases actually. And any contribution really is welcome. That's all. Thanks a lot.
Okay, let's try to sense the temperature. Who thinks that the Ccamp should work on this topic in an experimental way? No.
I don't know. It seemed perfectly clear to me.
Since Lou is my mentor, I actually tended to do his same mistakes. So, okay, let's try again. The options are not to work on this, reject this work. The second is work on this topic, make it an experimental draft. If you have other proposal, I'm open to it. But let's start with these two. So first one, reject this work. 2. Who is in favor of working on this topic in an experimental way? I would like to hear a couple of comments from who didn't express who didn't give any feedback. Is because you are not interested? It's because there is a third option I didn't consider?
Just because I'm getting blamed for things. This is Lou. I'm certainly okay with working on it. It's just I'm not going to go build it. So I didn't want to go and express an opinion.
Okay.
It's not that I object.
That's a good
I think
feedback.
it's perfectly reasonable, but I'm not building it, so don't think I should weigh in.
Okay. Okay.
And also, as I said, you can always do this and then kick it out later. Like you can say that, well, the group doesn't have interest to publish this, and then they can go independent stream. So this is not that you're dead on that you're going to accept this as your working group documents.
Okay. Thanks. Quickly, please, because we are a little bit late.
Dieter Beller again. I have actually read the document. I understand what these parameters are. What I think is missing is I think these parameters are defined to determine optical feasibility of an end-to-end path. What I'm missing in the document is a procedure or a formula that has to be applied based on these parameters. And I'm wondering whether this can be standardized, or because there are also parameters missing, because you also have to take into consideration optical, nonlinear optical impairment parameters, etc. And this is something that's, well, very proprietary in my opinion.
Can I answer? I agree with the procedure. So it's nice to see how to deal with the parameters. I disagree with the formula because these are matter of ITUT.
Hamian from Huawei. I didn't raise my hand because personally I'd like to see this work here, but it may be not the right time as we didn't go consistently with ITU. Maybe not. We should always keep an eye on the other side of this work.
Thank you. Let's move on. Thank you, Gabriele. Jonas, we are now moving to microwave.
Yes, and this is also a two-set presentation. I will start with a presentation of the framework, and Amy will make the presentation of the first version of the young data model supporting microwave radio link interfaces. Should we run them both and then have a session or? Okay. So this is a framework for microwave radio link management. It's produced by a design team. It was formed June the 1st, and the participants are shown on the slide here. This is the scope, and it replaces a problem statement that we presented at IETF 96. The scope is still the same, but I would like to highlight some things or repeat some things. It's what we're talking about here is unified management of the microwave radio link interface. So it's this part here of a microwave node. Other parts are not covered by this framework and is expected to be managed using other existing or emerging young data models. The scope includes the relationship between the radio link interface and the other interfaces in the node, of course. It's both microwave and millimeter wave. It's supposed to be supporting both the traditional network management systems as well as the unified management concept within SDN. And it is the basis for the model that Amy will present in a short while. Changes compared to the problem statement presented at the last IETF meeting. We have made minor updates on the first 5 chapters, mainly to make it a bit clearer. And we have added 2 new chapters. One requirements chapter, which is summarizing the requirements to be fulfilled by the young data models supporting microwave radio link interfaces. And the chapter 7 gap analysis, which is looking at what's existing and making a recommendation on what existing more generic young data models can be used for selected parts of this requirement set, and also a recommendation on what this microwave specific model should cover and what the gaps are that need to be filled. And this is a short summary of the recommendation. I won't go through all the details. I would like to highlight a few of them. The structure, that's one big reason why bringing it up here. We would like to use a structure which is in line with the interface management model, RFC 72223, and introduce 2 new interfaces in line with what was included in a previous model for microwave radio links. And we will also use that model in combination with the model currently under development within ONF as the basis for the attributes, the parameters to be supported by this model. And of course, add those attributes that need to be added in order to fill the gaps we have identified. And the second thing I would like to highlight is that we would like to rely on other models for the more generic parts of the functionality, such as notifications, alarm synchronization, and equipment inventory. And there we have some examples, the NetMod alarm module and the NetMod entity module that we believe can be used for that purpose. Amy, you mentioned that there are work going on in some of these areas, so maybe we have the wrong references here. But let's come back to that. And finally, we believe that it's important that a model is validated by both operators and vendors in the process of making it stable and more mature. And I realized that perhaps I should have the same question as we had here related to the problem statement. What do we do with this? My initial request here was that it should be adopted by the working group, but I realize now that there are more options than that. And we are, of course, seeking for additional comments and feedback on this framework.
Yep.
Thank you.
Please.
Lou Berger, go back one page, please. I think this work is really interesting and useful overall. I also think there's a good discussion to be had on that alarm module, but it's a little bit of a rat hole. So I don't know if you want to sort of wrap the questions up and then go into the rat hole or not go into the rat hole. It'd be good to do it because I think we have the right people in the room.
You see the right people in the room?
I do.
Okay.
Go into the rat hole.
Yes.
Awesome, thanks. So that alarm module, it's doing control of alarms, right? And there's going to be some technology-specific parts of that, right? At least eventually. That's sort of what I expect. What working group should that be done in? So I can wear a NetMod hat and say, you know, it's fine for it to be done somewhere else. I can wear a Tees hat and say, well, we do generic, Tees does generic traffic engineering, Ccamp does the specifics, maybe we do the generic and Tees in the specific here. But I also could say, maybe this is your position, the chairs, that, hey, this isn't traffic engineering. This is alarm control. That's not really traffic engineering. We could do the generic part too. So the question is where should that piece be done? The dovetailing, the alarm control.
This,
yeah, so you say you rely on the generic model.
Oh, okay, so, this one.
Yeah, so that's an individual draft, so that needs to be done somewhere. Certainly the microwave specific parts belong here. I think everyone agrees. But where should the generic part go? And I think we have Tees chairs here, Ccamp chairs here, and most important, we have RAD. So I actually don't have the only strong opinion here that I have is as NetMod chair, I prefer it not to be done in NetMod because NetMod doesn't really have the knowledge of the technology specific. So I don't think it belongs there. But other than that, I'm sort of open. I can see both sides of do the generic Tees and the specific here or do them both here. I don't know. By the way, I'm speaking as for myself in whatever hat you want. I suspect that my Tees co-chair may want to get up and tell me I'm wrong. So
let's see what he says.
Hi, Peter. I see alarm control as something that could influence path placement. It's technically not really a traffic engineering thing, but it could be used by a traffic engineering application. So, I mean, I don't mind taking it into Tees.
Okay. Deborah, do you have input for us, or you let us fight with each other to find a place for this work?
Well, I think the most important is that the work gets done.
Quickly and well.
And right now, when I look at that document, I see it more as Ccamp because it's really it's discussing what the transport modeling of fault management, which is really close to the heart of Ccamp. So unless T's doesn't have anything else to do, and they promise they're going to.
We are keeping them busy with ICTF.
I think a lot of the expertise on the transmission alarms is right here, and that's actually most of that document. Even though it says it's generic, it's transmission.
I'm certainly fine with that from the T's perspective, although you hear we're split. And boy, would it have been easier before when we only had Ccamp.
Okay, thank you. So, as I said before, the fact that this support document might not become an RFC doesn't mean that this can't become a working group document. So, actually, we built a design team because there was a lot of support for this topic. There were many people interested in that, and I would say that, in my opinion, my personal opinion, not as a chair, is that this draft is good enough to be the foundation for the working group work, but I would like to see if this is a shared opinion. So let's see if I learned. I'm going to ask if the working group is in favor or against the adoption of this draft as a working group. Who is in favor? Quite a lot. Who is against? No one. Okay, so we will take this to the mailing list. I would like to thank you twice. Once for the good work. Second, because I remember a comment from Julien at the last meeting saying, how can you survive in Sweden without knowing anything about microwave? Thanks to you, I learned a lot about microwave. I feel my job more secure now. And I can learn more about the young models for microwave from the next presentation. Thank you, Jonas.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So Jonas' presentation make my presentation much easier because there's a lot of background information, so I don't have to look into the details. The only thing I want to say is that the conclusion from the framework draft is that we will certainly focus that conclusion in the frame draft, and the structure we will use the Airbag Ccamp microwave radio link, and we will take from for each lift definitions, we will reference from that draft and also ONF model as an input. And there's some gaps being identified, so we were trying to fill the gaps in this young draft. So the main structure of the young model for microwave radio link, it's actually we take this. I'm sorry. We take this figure from the framework document, and actually we will have two virtual, not two layers to describe microwave radio link. One is a radio link terminal, another is a carrier termination. So that's isn't it all any other client services existing client services. So we will include how to set up the connection from the client interface into the radio link terminal, but we don't touch the details on how to model this client interface. So the structure of this young model, we will have how to configure these two layers for microwave nodes for both configuration and status. And we will also touch for some specific application, which is widely used in the microwave technology. For example, protection. This is the radio protection, and also XPIC and MIMO. It's a kind of radio groups which is used to increase the capacity or to I think many is used to increase the capacity, the system capacity. So that's the basic structure of the this young model. And this page shows the details, but I won't introduce one by one. And I want to point out that in this current version, it's a 0.0 version. We don't have enough time to include all the definitions from the layers I just mentioned before. So in this version, it's only included the definitions for carrier termination config, and we will have side discussion, several side discussion this week, and they're trying to make sure we were able to finish the definition for the rest part of the model. So that's the current progress. So moving forward, we were asking whether it's possible to adopt by the working group, and of course, as a design team, we will continue to finalize the model, and of course, we would like to see if there's more interest and contribution to this work. So that's pretty much of this slides. Okay, thank you.
Okay. In case someone wants to join you, when are you meeting?
Well, we plan to have a side discussion just right after this session.
Okay. So open to everyone, I hope.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay. Any question? Okay. Thank you very much, Amy. I think we can move to the next one. We are changing topic again. Please.
Hi, everyone. This is a new topic in SEC. And this topic is about the Ccamp routing and signaling framework for audio thing. Also, it includes the solution. And just after the submit of this document or this draft, I received some interest through mail during the meeting this week. First, Hope Van Harvard just sent me the mail that I want to join as a co-host. Also, just during the meeting this week, we also received other interest from Infinera, from Huawei about this topic. Okay, so let's go to the container detail of this draft. So this draft is mainly focused on the GMPS control plane technology of the audio thing. And the audio thing is introduced in RTOT and in Z.709 2016. And the 2016 Z.709 published at the June of this year. So here, just this slide and the next slide give a brief description of what audio thing is and its function. Just some brief description. So audio thing are printed in an interface-independent manner by means of an audio thing instances that which are marked from 1 to n. And this is that the audio thing is comprised of 1 to n audio things through inverse multiplexing. And also, one audio thing contains an instance of audio thing overhead and audio thing overhead, and then OPOC overhead, and then the payload that has 25 gig tributary slot. And the next slide is about, I think it's about some description about the client. So the audio thing cannot be used to support non-OTN client signal. It only provides a supervision for transport between audio key and wire point. So yeah, these 2 pages just give some brief description about the OTO thing. So let's go to the next page. Yeah, this page just give a summary of what we are doing, what we are trying to solve. Yeah, in Ccamp, yeah, we are trying to solve about on the GMPS protocol control, such as the signaling activation and writing activation related. And we want to use the writing and the signaling to control, to set up the audio sync connectivity connection. And we aim to include some necessary extensions in this draft. Mainly SVPT and OSPFT. Currently, this is an initial version of this draft, and it only contains the requirements of signaling and writing, and a little some use cases. So, and the protocol extensions will be contained in the future version. So this is the state of the current draft. And the next 2 pages just give some analysis based on our work, that the requirement of the signaling and the requirement of writing, that I think that the signaling should be able to specify this new audio signal type and traffic information and tributary slot granularity. Also, we think we should use signaling to support the setup of the new audio sync container, the type of container, with mapping and multiplexing capability defined in J.709. Also, about a tributary number, and we need to support the TPN allocation and negotiation. And also, a new, maybe not new, the OTOCN separate path, which means that when we carry, when we use the audio sync or OTOCN, that part of the tributary may not be available. So if we use this kind of OTOCN, we can just remove some unavailable tributary slot and only transfer the available tributary slot. So we need to support this kind of what's called the OTOCN separate path setup. And this is the requirement of the signaling. The next one, some writing, just some indication here. The writing protocol just should be indicate which link or which part support the audio sync forwarding. Also, it should be able to support the advertisement of audio sync separate support information, and some information about the tributary slot granularity. So, okay, next step, yeah. Just some following steps that we just want to complete some solution sections of the draft and go on with this work. And also, we request the comments. After all, this is the initial one, so any comments is welcome. Also, we welcome anyone who are interested in this topic through mail and just go to the mic and say to us. Also, for those guys who are interested in this topic, they already send to me face to face or through mail, and we meet with each other this morning. We just have some brief discussion. Also, we receive some suggestion also from FATEC that we can go directly to a solution. So it will be more efficient. And I think the first step currently we should try to understand what's the problem, and then do some analysis, and then go to a solution. That's our plan. So, okay, thank you.
First of all, are we sure this is a standard data plane?
Okay.
It's pre-published.
Yeah.
Better to be safe.
Yeah. So I think as well, since it is a pre-published, not yet standard, I think there's no issue to work on that from that perspective. However, a few questions relate to the CN. So the understanding is that the C basically means 100 gig and N is a number, a multiplier. So my understanding of this draft is that you're saying that audio C1, so 100 gigabit, exists and is not the same as an ODU4. Is this understanding correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So, which means, let's say we will then end up with, let's say, two different 100 gig ODU containers in GMPLS. Are those compatible, or can they make to be compatible with a gateway functionality?
Sorry, gateway functionality.
If you get from one side an ODU C1, and on the other hand you have an ODU 4.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand they're not compatible.
I don't think so.
Correct. So actually, the last presentation that I'm going to present will, address your question. Actually, right now I can answer your question. Actually, for the ODU 4, it's totally different from ODU C1. So actually, when the customer, when the operator is going to request, for example, ODU 4, and then actually it is ODU 4. If you are going to request the audio C1, and this is audio C1, so actually they are two different signal types. So no, interworking issues. Total, nothing.
If you, I mean, it basically works like with a regenerator. So you get from one side an audio C1, and you can, whatever is contained in it, I mean, GMP mapping, for example, you can map it also into an audio 4.
Yeah, before you set up the connections, for example, for audio 4, you have to specify the GPID information, right?
What I'm trying to say here that this is open up, let's say, quite a big work, because again, let's say it's basically if you have a kind of a client mapped interface, say Ethernet into an ODU 100 gig ODU kind, say an ODU 4. There is kind of a regeneration point where you can get an ODU 4 in and you get out with the ODU C1 by simply remapping it. So it's a kind of a stitching mechanism. So all of that, let's say, these kind of mechanisms then would need to be defined. So I'm just trying to highlight here, let's say, what is the work you're proposing, and where we would get with the 100 gig kind of end-to-end connection.
Dieter Bell, Nokia. I think here we have an excellent example of work that should be done here in Ccamp, because a data plane standard has just been finished and is available now. So it's now our task to define control plane extensions in order to support that. Thank you.
One question from my side. From the requirement, it's not clear to me whether you need new mechanisms or just let me say new codes for the existing ones. In the sense that from the requirements, it seems to me that the mechanisms are already there are enough.
Yeah.
Is this correct?
In fact, we also talked about this question this morning, and we try to reuse the current defined mechanism of GXFnet if it's okay.
Okay, perfect. So in this case, my suggestion, if you come to this conclusion, my suggestion is to have a single document.
About a single link?
A single document with solution for signaling, not a framework.
Okay.
We don't need it since we don't define new mechanisms and so on, but just a section in the solution document explaining why you are defining this solution.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, definitely about this. Yeah, we will split the document into two.
One for signaling, one for routing is more than okay. My suggestion is not to spend time for on the framework, but just have a section because if it was something totally different, a good explanation would be needed and make it clear before we go on with the defining the solutions. But since my understanding, and you're confirming it, is that the mechanisms are already there, we just need an augmentation. I would say that not wasting time on a framework is a good idea. But Gert disagrees.
No, just one little addition. So the only thing that I see different from the existing one is the stitching. That is not yet there in the existing framework. So that would be something new. Because it never happened that you have an ODU of a certain size that matches a different ODU of the same size, transporting something in the middle which can be transported either way. So that is a new thing. I don't think it warrants a framework. So I'm with you, but I think we should at least having a look into it.
Okay, this is something to be addressed. Thank you very much. Next, please. Which is Iftkar.
Hi, this is Iftikar. I'm giving a brief update on the Flexi routing and signaling framework and solution. And so we actually presented the last IETF some of the use cases. So today we're not going to go into the use case detail, just a brief summary actually. Okay, so just for folks who are not familiar with Flexi, so this is actually defined in the OIF implementation agreement. So essentially, people who are familiar with the lag, just like a link aggregation group, so you can actually take, for example, 100 gig EFIs and then combine them, or what they call bonding, and make a group. And then actually, Flexi framework defines a mechanism to provide a rate, MAC rate, which is above 100 gig. For example, in this case, we have shown 200 gig, or you can also support sub lower than 100 gig rates. And so the group, the bonding of the FIs is called the Flexi group. And so there's actually very elaborate mechanism defined in the OIF framework, and also some description is given in the draft, how to actually the clients are actually distributed or load balanced among the group. So, okay, so this is just a brief info on that. Okay, so what is the problem we actually are solving? So we basically are looking at the routing and the signaling extension for GMPLS to support Flexi use cases. Okay, so what is the progress since the last update? Okay, so at the Berlin time, we had actually 3 or 4 different proposals, different use cases. So we discussed among ourselves, and then we have converged on one document, the one I'm presenting today. And so there was actually a feedback from the last IETF aligning with the data plane, ITU data plane. So we actually have narrowed down the use cases, only the one which are specified in the ITU. Actually, so there are more use cases which we have parked them on the side, but just focusing on the use cases which are aligned with the ITUT data plane. Okay, so what are some of the issues? So as I just mentioned, there are additional use cases which we would like to include it, but I think we need to monitor what's going on in the other standard bodies like ITUT, OIF, and IEEE. As the work progresses over there may be some additional use cases we might bring in. For now, we're just waiting for the progress. Okay. What are the next steps? So we actually basically need to complete the use cases. and then start filling in actually the architecture framework document section. So we actually have followed the outline in the same document. We are introducing the solution section as well. So we need to start looking at the solution. And we do have some solution proposal. We need to converge those, and then maybe by the next IETF present those. And then we'd like to actually invite comments and any contribution. It's open. Anybody actually is welcome to join in this work. This is a very initial phase, so there's still plenty to contribute, or So any questions? Okay, thank you. So that's all.
I guess Dieter has a question.
Oh, I thought he presented.
When he goes to the mic with the PC.
Dieter
Good luck
here.
I thought you were presenting, so okay, that's
No, no.
okay.
I have to look at my notes because I'm not really an expert in FlexE, but
Sure.
I got a few comments from some of my colleagues.
Sure.
So it looks like there's still some things defined in your draft, like resizing, which is not part of the FlexE IA that the OIF has released. And there's another issue with back-to-back FlexE described in section 3.3.4, and I
Right.
think both of these things are not part of the FlexE IA. So
Yes.
that's my comment.
So let me try to, okay, so on the resize, I believe that maybe some text is left over. I think we agreed that we need to take the resizing out. I think we have decided it. Maybe some text is there. We'll try to update that one. And then we had actually a lot of discussion among the contributor on the back-to-back use case, actually. A lot of discussion. So our conclusion is, okay, majority of the folks, okay, that this actually, the back-to-back use case, what we describe is a basic use case, which basically the scenario is like you have two CE devices connecting to a single PE device, like, right? So it's not actually going beyond what is specified in the OIF or ITU. It's not even using it's just using simple layer Ethernet data plane for that portion of it. So we think this actually is completely within the framework, but we can discuss if you don't agree. Yeah.
Thank you. Sergio, your turn.
Good afternoon. I'm going to make a brief update of gap analysis for not bound interface. I've already presented in the joint session, so I'll try to stay brief. Just a reminder, what is the objective and the scope of these drafts? The goal is the focus on analyzing existing models used by the domain controller and the orchestrator, and identify some use cases and try to map and analyze if against these use cases, and the use cases are single domain, multi-domain, and multi-layer, try to identify possible modeling gaps, modeling missing or attributes, and try to provide a sort of guideline for or augmentation of what is already exists, or also new young model. There is no goal in this draft for controller device interface. What is the status? We finished already before Berlin meeting the single domain, for which we have already provided comments for traffic engineering tunnel model. And also in parallel, we submitted a draft for OTN augmentation for tunnel model. We finished a multi-domain and multi-layer case before this IETF, and coming feedback from this analysis, we provide some set of comments again to traffic engineering tunnel model, and we had a discussion with traffic engineering topology authors on the multi-layer aspects. All the information and materials related to these drafts and various discussion are in this GitHub. With respect the previous version, we added a reference to GitHub. We update the section for multi-layer part, and important point is we update the summary table to specify the young model that is actually present. Then we have also updated one part that is related to the discussion on transitional link concept for multi-layer description, and also some point related to ongoing discussion related to the path computation. Okay, this is well-known transport MBI young model overall view. What is the next step? So before Italy mentioned that in the design team the gap analysis would be or could be one of the input of the design team. So we are happy on that. So this next step of this draft probably are also linked to the decision of design team, how can be extend the model, this draft, or the model, the gap analysis has to be provided like a container of the design team activity. I don't know. So this is something that probably, if it is confirmed, that can be decided during the work. Obviously, we need to follow anyway the different topic, and that is in discussion. For example, now for path computation, but also other, and keep updating the draft to include more information if it is necessary. So to take update with respect all the discussion that is regarding actual young model for MBI.
Thank you, Sergio. I would say that the reply to the question here is obvious. Yes, this is the starting point for the design team. I would encourage the design team to heavily take content from this draft and make it yours. Gert, your turn.
Well, it's only a question. I actually have a question about how to interpret the term physical link in the draft. I mean, not here. So one of the considerations, I mean, taking the example we had before, so would Ethernet over OTU C1 or OTN considered to be a single physical link, or is it
overlapping of,
or is it a kind of a layered physical link?
Yeah.
So that would be nice to clarify in the scope of the framework, but again, okay, detail.
Good idea. Last but not least,
okay, this is Fatai, so I'm going to present this draft on behalf of the authors. Actually, Dafa, he tried to present this draft remotely, but he got some problem with internet connection. So thanks to Dafa, I have I have not presented a draft for several years, had no chance. So really thanks to
you are not supposed to do that.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think this draft is really small and very thin, and the solution is quite straightforward. And so actually there are some, we'll talk about requirements and then very simple solution. So I think for the requirements, actually, it's really clear. So, and this morning I had some discussion with Chile and IETF. So, and also I got the same comment as Daniel, that because the requirements to support the, beyond 100 OTN, they are quite clear. So it does not make sense to make this kind of framework. We can just jump into the solution draft, So this draft is going to make some extension on the signal type to support audio CN. So you can see this is the list. So right now it can support audio C1 to 9, and even you can figure out if we needed more. For example, audio C10, 11, 12. Yeah. So this draft is really simple and easy for people to understand. So my coworkers from Cisco, they think that this draft is ready for WG adoption. Okay, any comments?
It's kind of the same comment I had before. I think to this audience, it's not very clear that an audio C1 is completely different from audio 4, because both is 100 gigs. So for the rest, I think it's kind of straightforward.
Yeah.
But I would really appreciate much more wording on the case of the 100 gig.
Okay.
Because it's absolutely confusing to get, let's say, for a single bit rate from the same organization to completely incompatible implementation. So
yeah,
that has, let's say, some implications. So I would invite you to write a little more about.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So actually, before I co-signed this draft, I checked with the editor of G.7 Online, and I was told that actually audio C4 is totally different from audio C1. So I can double check with some ITOT guys. And if we need more information about application stuff, we can add some text to make it clear.
It's not that I mean, I'm okay with advancing the draft.
Yeah.
It's just that since it is, say, an exception in general, it would be very good to have somewhere a documented what is, or let's say that there is a difference. Number one, what is the difference, let's say, in our terms, and how we want to address it in terms of signaling, routing, and so on.
Okay, yeah.
For the rest, I mean, if you start with audio C2 and so on, I mean, that's natural. But the one is really, I think it's really worth to spell it out what it is.
Okay. Should
An interrupt use case could be added as well. I mean,
can you repeat the question before going to the answer, please?
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting anything. Just say, okay, we should document it somewhere. Whatever the draft is, I think this would be a good place. And then I think you can continue with your.
Okay, thank you.
Chile, come from IT. Currently, I think we're still trying to understand problem. I'm not really sure if we need a framework or a draft that we need to address the requirements. Also, because I think just this draft is a little short, and I can't find any analysis or any mechanism described in this document. So I think maybe we need to start from the beginning, to do some analysis and then give the conclusion or answer. If we need a framework, we can go directly to the solution.
We always agree that we could working on the requirements or analysis, this kind of support document, but it does not mean this document will be published as RFC. So, and also because this requirements really very clear, but we can work on it, we will not prevent some people to do that.
Okay, another question. In fact, I'm not really sure. Yeah, as I said, my confusion is because that in currently in J.709, that can be more than just 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9 signals. So how to define the audio audio say 10, audio say 11, I don't know.
As I just mentioned, you can even add to 100, audio say 100, if we really need this kind of, audio say 100. It's quite very easy to edit. Because in the reality, at this moment, audio say 6 should be sufficient, should be enough at this moment,
I'm not really sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, quick question, Loa Anderson. Can I paraphrase you a little bit? I think what you actually said was that the situation is quite clear. We can jump straight into doing solutions. And if there are any information of architectural framework requirement kind, we can actually include it in this specific document.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. Right.
fine.
Great. Yeah. Agree.
Yeah, which was basically my proposal at the beginning. But actually, I'm a little bit surprised in the sense that reading the framework and the requirement, I got the feeling that this was something pretty simple, but not that simple that could be solved just with the 9 values. That's it. That's the only thing that is needed.
Yeah.
Do you agree with this, or do you think that the requirements lead to something more than that? Do you think that this solution is enough?
If we just focus on the single type, this thing should be sufficient. But if we are talking about, synchronous link extension for the beyond 100G, maybe we need more information. And then I also will talk to the co-authors if we need, extend this draft to be a kind of, signaling extension for beyond 100G. This is part of, at least, definitely the signal type will be part of the signal extension, for the, beyond 100G.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but the authors of this draft, like Zafar, he managed wants to focus on the signal type extension, but maybe beyond of the signal type, we may need some more information, but we need to investigate if we need or not.
This was my question. Just with the signal type, you can fully control a beyond 100 gigabit network. Or, for example, I read from the title, it wasn't clear to me, but I now read that it is RSVPT extension. So this is enough also for SPF. Don't you need something particular for multiplexing, mapping?
Yeah, of course. In the routing, maybe this maybe.
Okay, so this is covering just
yeah, right, yeah.
Okay.
Just again, to rephrase the comment, for beyond 100G, I think you're right. The only challenge is 100G. So in that sense, it's kind of, let's say, misleading. But just to reiterate that I think there's additional work to be done for the 100G that needs to be picked up.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I guess. I mean, this is addressing this part of the solution in the sense that in addition to the signal type, you need other things.
Yeah,
Okay.
right,
Okay.
yes.
So, okay. Perfect. Any other comments?
Okay, none. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was the end of the second session. See you in Chicago. Thank you. The blue sheets, where are they? Did all of you sign them?
References in the document, I think the latest version of the G79, the 2016 version, is already it's not a free standard anymore. It's already, I think, if you look at the IETF, I think so. Yeah. Look at the IETF website.
Yeah.
It's in force. It says it's in force.
Okay.
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 And I think it's the V5 version, it's not the V3 version.
Yeah, V5. Actually, Danfa made a mistake.